Welcome, everybody, to the June 13th, 2023 Johnson City Regional Planning Commission meeting. If you're here and would like to speak to one of the topics that's on our agenda, I'll ask you to come forward after I've opened the floor for public comment. Please come to the podium, speak into the microphone, and please give us your name and address for the record. And I'd ask you to please stay on the topic, address your comments to the commission, not to the audience and not to staff. And you'll have 3 minutes to make your comments. I appreciate everybody being here. I'll call the meeting to order. It's now 6:01. All right, our first order of business. I would look for my friend Vice Mayor Murphy to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and give us an indication, if you would, please.
Thank you, Chairman Dagenhart. I'd be honored to do so. Let us pray. Dear gracious Father, we are here again to conduct the business and affairs of this great city that you know and we know as Johnson City. I pray that the discussions that we have and the decisions that we make are pleasing unto your sight. In Jesus' name, amen. Pledge of Allegiance.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. All right, before us, I think we have our agenda. Everybody has one up here, I trust. Does anyone have any questions or changes to the agenda as presented? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. All right, we have the minutes of our May 9th meeting before you. They have been reviewed. Does anyone have any comments or requests for changes?
Move we approve.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda, the minutes as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. All right, our first order of business is a combination of two lots. Mr. Ryder, I see you're at the podium.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Chairman Dagenhart, Vice Chairman Oceanbine, Commissioners, Vice Mayor Murphy. This would normally be something that we could approve administratively because it is just a simple recombination of plats. This is on South Boone Street. This property was rezoned from B3 to B2 back in December to allow for the development of a restaurant. They're going to renovate this existing structure and extend the structure to the south with the creation of an overhang. That overhang is going to cross a property line, therefore we needed to combine the two plats, or to combine the two lots. The reason this is before you tonight is because the subdivision regulations require a 7.5-foot drainage and utility easement along all interior lot lines. The B2 zoning allows for zero setback development, so this building as is okay. However, with the subregs being enacted, we have this issue of the drainage and utility easement. We do not want the developer to have, the owner to have some sort of issue later on down the road with having a drainage and utility easement under an existing structure. That doesn't make sense. So therefore, we're recommending approval of the final plat with a variance, and for you to approve the variance request to waive the drainage and utility easement under the existing structure. So the drainage and utility easements would exist all the way else around the property line. It just would not have them under the existing structure.
So it's just the piece under the building that
Just
we're waiving.
Just the piece under the building, the 7.5 feet. So again, 7.5 feet along all interior lot lines. This building's been there for a very, very long time. We've talked to Water and Sewer and Public Works. There's no reason to have a drainage and utility easement underneath that structure. So we're recommending just waiving that. And then that way there will be no issue for them later on if they ever sell the property, title searches, getting a clear title, all those sorts of things. So I wanted to bring it before you tonight and request approval of this variance.
Any questions for staff? All right, I'm going to open the floor. Anything else, Mr. Ryder?
No, sir.
I'll go ahead and open the floor for public comment. Is anyone here to speak to the question? I'll close public comment. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's up to us.
Sounds pretty cut and dry to me.
I'll go ahead and offer up a motion, Mr. Chairman. Go ahead and approve the final plat for 213 South Boone Street, as well as the variance request to waive the 7.5 feet drainage and utility easement under the footprint of the existing structure.
Okay, you've got a motion.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion about the motion, clarification? Nicole, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Lockmiller?
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oceanbine?
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart?
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You're welcome, Mr. Mansy. Good evening, Ms. Rogers. I guess you've got the next item up for agenda, and that's the rezoning at Knob Creek and Pactolas. So this is an issue of land use before us.
Yes. Apologize. Okay, rezoning 1108 for, located at Knob Creek and Pactolas. There we go. So the applicant would like to rezone 2 lots located at the corner of Knob Creek and Pactolas from R4 to B1 neighborhood commercial and R5 high-density residential. And we will look at that. I want to start out looking at the existing conditions because there will be a juxtaposition with what they're proposing. So currently, there is a non-conforming commercial use at the corner of the lot, and it was there since 1955, well before it was part of the city. And later, after it was in the city, 8 apartment units, and there used to be a house. This is 2 lots. This one lot, there's no lot lines on this, so this is a lot, and it used to have a house on it. And then this is the other lot with the apartments and the commercial. And so they have 4 driveways, one for the old house that's gone. This is a driveway to the back of the bike shop. This is a driveway to sort of like the side of the bike shop. And then this is the driveway that the apartments use. And then there's a couple other random curb cuts around the corner. So that's what I'm trying to describe here. And the tenants of these apartments you see there's no dumpster enclosure. They use rolling trash bins that they roll out to Knob Creek. So that's what it looks like now. And then again, just so you can see, the arrows are all pointing out where the actual curb cuts are located, and we'll take like a street view look at that as well. But the actual driveways are this one, this to the side, and to the apartments over here. And then the street views, this is that old house that's been removed, and there's the curb cut. And then you get up to the bike shop, and here's the driveway to the back. And then there's this other random one on the corner into the asphalt. And then on the front, this is the front of the bike shop, there's these other 2, and they're not driveways, but they're curb cuts. And this is the one that goes to the bike shop proper, the actual driveway, and then this is the actual driveway to the apartments. So that's what the site looks like right now. And now we can look at what the proposal shows. And you can see they still have 2 lots, except they would be configured differently, where the B1 commercial use would have a lot and the rest of the residential use would have a lot. And as you can see here, there is no more driveway here. They're going to remove that, put in a curb and a sidewalk. And this driveway will also be closed with a curb and a sidewalk. And so the parking will be reconfigured to this sort of location. The proposal is for up to 28 units, and they're like townhome developments. They're going to put in a dumpster, so no more rolling bins out to the street. And they will have, the only driveway that they will keep is the one that's currently at the back of the bike shop. So they are also going to close this one and these 2 driveways. So that's just an important point. And then the concept plan shows all the requirements: stormwater, landscape buffer, the parking, and the sidewalk up here. So the comprehensive future land use plan proposes that this site be used for residential. Most of the site will be residential, except for this corner, which rezoning it to B1 would correct a long-standing nonconformity. It's been commercial since 1955, as far as I can tell. We had a neighborhood meeting on June 5th, and we had 3 neighbors come to ask questions of the developers. And I didn't get any particular comments at that meeting, but there was a letter that I received after that was included in your packet. The city has a lot of policies that support the development, and I feel like I should just go back really quickly to an aerial photo. I should have moved this up. Okay, so our site is located up here, and it's about 3/4 of a mile to this huge commercial area on Market Street. Then they also have a school here, there's a big park over here, and the corner, Pactolas and Knob Creek are both collectors. So all of those are indicators in planning that that is an appropriate place to put higher density residential use. And so staff recommends approval for a number of reasons. First, the appropriate location for higher density because of what we just talked about. It would formalize that non-conforming commercial use. We would have that safety improvement for the Knob Creek corridor. And we have a number of city of policies that support, and infill is smart growth. And your commission has your normal decision options, and I'm here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Rogers. Let's see what questions we have for staff.
Curb cut, what will be the drive now for the back shop? Where will it be located?
They will have the shared driveway with the residential use. Go back to the plan.
So it's essentially the front of the building will move to the back, right? The entrance of the building will move.
Right, so the current configuration is there's a driveway opening here that's gonna be closed with a curb and a sidewalk. And this will be their sole entrance to the back of their building.
So what about the other curb cuts on Knob Creek that, yes, they're at there?
There's no proposal to do anything with
They'll just
those.
remain, okay.
Yeah, it's the existing condition of the road. But closing these 2 driveways is anticipated to be a pretty big, safety improvement.
Absolutely.
Amber, this may be too soon for this question, but I noticed in the letter that was written that the traffic pattern was addressed. You know, you have Jeremiah School with traffic coming out, then you have traffic coming off of Pactolas, and then you have traffic that comes off of Skyline.
Mhm.
And it really can, it's not a good situation sometimes, so has that issue been addressed?
We have not done any traffic studies, but we can ask Lawrence if he has any insight, if he doesn't mind, if you would like for him to. Thank you, Lawrence.
We don't have any traffic studies that we've done. Again, it's kind of the existing conditions. We haven't asked, and I don't think they're planning on changing the commercial parcel. So, but we had asked them, originally they had planned on doing some kind of entrance on Knob Creek, and we're aware that the site distance is an issue on Knob Creek, so that's kind of why they've limited it to Pactolas.
I think maybe, I'm not a traffic engineer, obviously, but, so to have all of these units and this commercial use this driveway instead of coming out here and here, it may cause these people a bit of a delay getting out of their driveway, but the removal of these 2 driveways that are on this higher speed road, and the site distance, especially looking this way up Knob Creek to the right, coming out of this driveway, it's really, really short because there's actually a hill in the road and like that meets up to the curve. We can look at. I made a couple sort of like qualitative picture slides to see. So this this is the current, this is not the worst driveway either, but from here, you can only see about to the intersection. So you can't see any of these cars because this is uphill and a curve, so your sight line is completely cut off looking out of this driveway and this driveway this way. You can see down the other way fine, but these driveways are pretty treacherous for people trying to turn out, especially if you were gonna try to turn left out onto Knob Creek, because you can't see far enough to get into that traffic. And then, from Pactolas, you can see pretty far into the north part of the curve. You can see around the curve and up the road a bit, and you can't see very far around this corner. But these cars that are coming here, they're slowing to get into that turn. So if they're coming from this way and turning in, you can see them. And if they're coming from this way and turning in, they're going slow because of the shape of that curve. So this is short for AASHTO based on the posted speed limit, but because of the shape of the intersection, these cars are slowed down. So these people are safe to turn either way onto this road. And so they may be delayed getting out of their driveway, but it shouldn't cause a safety problem to the other driveways. That's sort of the way that we ran through it.
Well, I see your reasoning, because that's not an X intersection. You don't have flowing traffic from across Pactolas through an intersection, so
Mhm.
you do have to have slowed down traffic when they're turning onto Pactolas, which would
Right.
make a left turn out of the driveway more dangerous if it were faster traffic.
Right.
But I guess my concern is coming off of Skyline.
Over here.
Because it's offset, as you know.
So
Down
this
below.
is Skyline?
That's not Skyline.
Skyline's.
This is
Skyline's down
Skyline.
below there. That's
Skyline, I think
I'm
s-
sorry.
I think Skyline's up the road a little bit,
Let's go to an aerial.
yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Skyline Drive's right, right in here.
It is
Then
Skyline.
it comes back
Oh,
in.
okay.
I
So
was
that
thinking-
is Skyline right
Okay.
there. So you got the entrance right here. And so, you know, we want to give them some type of entrance. And we felt like the sight distance on Knob Creek was more important to keep because of the people coming over the hill from this direction here could cause incidents coming down and pulling off of Knob Creek. So we gave them we were kind of happy with the entrance coming off of Pactolas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another point is that we legally have to give them access to a road.
Well, that's gonna be crossing traffic, it's having to turn onto Pactolas.
Maybe not. Maybe it's coming on Knob Creek.
Off Knob Creek.
Yeah, but to me, the real risk, and it's more of a risk now, is that once you get on Pactolas, if you want to turn left back towards Market, that's very limited sideline. That looks more dangerous than the drive the existing drive, coming from the existing multifamily.
Wait, so you're talking about turning left onto Pactolas to turn
No.
left
No.
onto Knob
No,
Creek?
turning left off of Pactolas onto Knob Creek, turning basically, what is that, south?
So
Kinda
if you-
south.
If you
Okay.
went to the intersection of Pactolas and Knob Creek, that's a dangerous, you're talking about that.
That
well,
left-hand turn out of
yeah.
Pactolas looks dangerous.
And that,
Well, even
we
the
could
left-hand
check
turn
the site,
outside.
but that would be a public works kind of issue, not necessarily a problem with the
There's
site
al-
itself.
There's already a lot of traffic using that road, definitely at school, so you've not had any kind of increased accidents at that location that you're aware of.
Not that
So we're
I-
not suspecting that this
Yeah, we-
added, 28 units would cause a significant increase.
That's all right, yeah.
Really?
There could be more incidents with the site distance and the turning, that's where we were concerned about,
Yeah.
if we had the entrance on Knob Creek.
Yeah, because then you'd have 3 entrances and exits right there instead of 2. Yeah, that makes sense, okay.
So the current zoning allows for 14 dwelling units per,
Per acre.
Per acre.
The lot'll be about 1.4 acres. I'm not, we could do that math.
so from what I'm gathering, it could be up, if it's approved to be rezoned at R5, could go up to 30 units?
Their concept plan would limit them to a maximum of 28.
But according to if it's rezoned, it could go up to 30, correct?
Right, but they
Okay.
would have to do a concept plan amendment to increase the number of units, so you would
Okay.
see that again.
So as is, what would it be? What is it as is now for R4?
19.6 maybe?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not a math person, I shouldn't have spoken.
Yeah, I think the current bigger lot is, well, if it were 1.4 acres, it'd be 1.4 times
Right.
14.
And this is just a random question. I know there's currently like two buildings with several units. What will happen to the current tenants?
I'll
Just-
defer
just-
to.
Just out of curiosity.
How's everybody doing tonight? Joshua Henson, 900 Phillips Avenue, Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm the developer of this project. So the current buildings there are going to get taken down. We've not sent letters out to the tenants, but we'll give them ample amount of time. Our first phase that we're trying to accomplish with this, obviously everybody knows the economic climate of our country right now, and so we're trying to break this up into phases. So our first phase will be to get the whole thing replatted, redeveloped, and then start with the first 7, so we would not have to take down, or not have to relocate those tenants immediately, and then build on after the first 7 have been completed, or almost completed. And to answer your traffic issue, we had originally brought the plan, this is, let me grab the big one. This might be able to help too. So this is the current layout that we have. And if you see, we originally were going to have one exit onto Knob Creek and one onto Pactolas. After meeting with traffic engineering and planning, we decided that it was best for safety to keep it all on Pactolas. That road, the left-hand turn from Pactolas to Knob Creek, is a fairly busy road, and so the addition, in my opinion, of 10 units, I don't see would create too much of a significant impact to that intersection.
Also, wait, the information in here says it's 1.65 acres, not 1.4. The information in our packet.
Oh, that's the total size
The total with both lots, okay.
Yeah, it's just a guess. I don't have the exact measurement.
Okay,
Because the B1 lot will be some of that.
okay, all right. Yeah, because it'll have a different, all right.
And our hope is to create in this corridor a nice live-work community with, alternate housing that, Johnson City, it's not seen as much with this townhouse development. Our goal would also to be to redevelop the bike shop. They're kind of maybe split half of it, do a coffee shop or do some type of community office space or retail shop there, and then have the townhouses be able to use those as a nice place to live and work and use.
Aaron, did that answer your question?
Other questions for the developer? If I could ask you to please take your seat, I'll open the floor for public
Yes,
comment,
thank
and
you.
we may ask you to come back with if there's more
okay.
comments. Thank you. I'll open the floor for public comments. Anyone else here to speak to the question? All right, thank you. I'm gonna close the floor. Any other questions for the developer or for staff?
I'm still struggling with the safety aspect of turning left off of Pactolas. I mean, to me, if I was living there, I'd rather have a exit maybe approximately where the existing one is now, wherever it works out. Especially if I'm coming towards Market. That's a whole lot safer turn than if I have to go out to Pactolas and do it, plus less traffic.
Well, I heard Lawrence differently, that you've got more of a sight distance issue when you turn left if you're coming out onto Knob Creek than if you're coming out at turning off of Pactolas onto Knob Creek.
How can that be? I mean, you've got that building that's blocking half your sight. Have we measured the sight distance, Lawrence?
No, that would be up to the developer to show us, but we know it's kind of short, and you could, I think Amber had a graphic. Yeah, if you were at the, if you're turning out of here and going left, yeah, the building's gonna block your view right there. But the folks that are turning onto Pactolas coming from this way, they're gonna be going a little bit slower, because it's a sharp turn right there.
Sure.
So the speed's gonna be a little bit less, so they'll be able to hopefully have enough time to be able to notice that and not go. They do have a better sight distance coming from this way if somebody were to turn left onto Pactolas. And then if we're concerned about this, that's really becomes more of a, hey, this is an issue, do we improve this somehow? It's really this hillside that causes an issue for the folks down here. They can't see up far enough, and this is a higher speed road.
Then they go up
40
to Pactolas.
This is 45 miles an hour, people coming over the hill this way, and somebody trying to turn left off of Knob Creek could be impacted. They're gonna have a higher speed accident versus somebody pulling left out of here, probably a lower speed accident. And we wanna try to give them some type of access. Could it be improved? Maybe if they could move the entrance further back, they could maybe have better sight distance, but have more length to see, but the building is still gonna be in the way of
Well,
that view.
I think Bob's concern is when you're on Pactolas, turning onto Knob Creek.
Yes, so over here, if we're sending folks this way, and then they want to come back to West Market,
That's right.
that's more of a public works issue. The city can decide, hey, this is a dangerous intersection, we've got a lot of accidents here. We might need to put that on the list of improvements, and somehow, how do we improve that?
So did Public Works not look at this?
It's an intersection that, we're aware of, that there are accidents out there. I don't know where it is if it's on the list of things to improve. Will this site impact it greatly? They're increasing the trips, but it's not something that's significant that, I've been told, if we've got like 9,000 vehicles per day entering this area, then we're looking at improving the intersections. I don't think that's gonna bump that up to 9,000. But it's something that we
I'm
could take a
missing
look at.
something, gang.
But
But that's okay.
I see your concern, but I think the question for how this property gets used and whether this plat is appropriate, designed for this piece of property still makes sense. And it's a separate question, the safety of the Pactolas Knob Creek intersection.
But it's not just Pactolas and Knob Creek, because if you come off of Skyline. if
Come
the
off of Skyline and turn where?
Turns left. If they turn left from here, you come off of Pactolas to turn left. We got a situation here.
Then that's a traffic concern, in my opinion, that's independent of this property development question.
So it shouldn't be addressed before we approve.
I think we could possibly work it into our motion.
Well, but our developer said he was originally planning to come out, have a separate exit, and the city talked him out of it.
Because of the
So
sight
somebody at
distance.
the city thought that was not a good idea. Right? Is that correct?
It's a sight distance issue on Knob Creek,
To come out on Knob Creek?
to come out on Knob Creek.
Not turning left, it's not. It may be turning right, but even turning right, well, turning
So,
right, it probably is,
the
but
folks
turning left,
coming-
it would not be.
The folks coming over this hill at 45, 50 miles an hour coming over this way, and then this guy's trying to turn left out of here. He doesn't have enough time to see that distance, and he could pull out into somebody, and then that hits him, and it's a high-speed impact, 50 miles an hour, versus somebody turning right, coming around this corner, maybe 20, 25 miles an hour. He's got to be able to see them and react. I think you need like 200 and something feet, and it's 130 feet from this entrance to here. So, he's got a little bit better sight distance versus potentially 500 feet. He's got to be able to see to react to turn left on the Knob Creek. They don't have 500 feet from here to there, and then that's probably maybe 200 feet or 250.
But I have to agree with you, this is a traffic issue, Chris, that whether we approve or do not approve this tonight doesn't change anything about that corner.
And I-
That intersection.
And I don't think we would
It's
ask.
not gonna change it at all.
I don't think we would ask the developer to fix that intersection.
That's not my point at
Right,
all.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I see, and I see.
So by approving the plat, the concept plan.
The concept plan, which is binding.
Then he can't go back and put a curb cut in on Knob Creek.
He would have to come back to us to change the concept plan. Jenny, did you have any other thoughts on that question?
No, because, and I also, if I'm correct, without a rezoning, the density could be increased to, would we say 19 units for that section without having to request the rezoning through us. They could just do that right now, right? So they could increase it from the 9 to 19 without coming back to us, am I correct? Well, it's, the most they could put on it is 14.
Okay.
I mean, is 19, didn't we, it's 14 per acre and it's 1.4 acres. So that comes up to like 19.6 is what.
Yeah, and that would just be a site plan staff review. And I think the only thing that we would ask them to do would be to put the sidewalk on Pactolas.
Okay.
Additional discussion amongst us? Mr. Ryder?
I think I would just say that the real issue here is, I would say that this left turn here exists now. The left coming off of Knob Creek and the left out of Skyline exists now. So the real question is does adding, there's already, how many units here now? 8 units. So going up, and there's 22 that are proposed, 28 that are proposed. Does adding 20 more units significantly affect that intersection that have those turns that you already have those turns? People coming off of Skyline, people coming off of Knob Creek. Those turns are already there. Does 20 extra units impact it significantly enough to consider putting another entrance onto Knob Creek? And I would think that maybe Skyline would be better off with not having cars coming out of turning right onto here with cars turning left off of Skyline. It seems like that it makes it a little bit better for the Skyline drive, in my opinion. So I think that we're looking at maybe another 116 trips per day by adding 20 units. And that does not cross the threshold for you thinking that there should be an improvement or to adding another curb cut.
We can check the counts, but I don't think that's a 9,000 vehicles per day intersection, but we could check the counts if that's what y'all would like.
Does Jeremiah School have a school zone there? Do private schools get a,
Jeremiah School does,
do they have one?
Yes.
Okay. And it is on Knob Creek?
Knob Creek.
So there are significant portions of the day when the traffic is
Yeah.
15 miles an
Yes.
hour through there.
Knob Creek.
Thank you, Lawrence. I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds of soak time.
I'll shut up.
Oh, no, Bob, that's what we're here for.
How many readings do we have on this?
Well, this is the final thing, then it goes to the city commission.
Okay.
But it is a binding plat,
Right.
and it's a question of land use.
Director Ryder did make a point that existing conditions pretty much set up current reality anyway. With the building on the corner and the layout of the turns as is wouldn't be a whole lot different than what the developer would be putting in place. However, I do hear Mr. Cooper and his concern. But the existing conditions does not too much alleviate any prior concerns that we have right now. You do have a point.
I'd like to think that we could trust the tenants to decide which way they wanted, which exit they wanted to use. And probably a function of the time of day, which direction they're going, whatever. call the question.
Could I hear a motion?
I'll give a motion. I'll give a motion for approval of the rezoning of 1108 Knob Creek from R4 to B1 as well as R5. Is there anything else that needs to be?
I'm sorry, that's not the address, that's the rezoning number.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm quoting the subject rezoning number.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yep, the address wasn't here in the summary, so I just went to the rezoning number of 1108.
All right, I have a motion on the floor. Can I get a second?
I'm gonna go, okay, you got it? Rock, paper, scissors?
Bunch of shit.
Uvi seconded. It's gonna go before the commission anyway, but, I think it's worth continuing to give it another look. It is, housing is needed. We do have a shortage in our stock. I'm also curious as to know what are the price points, because affordable housing for the workforce is needed. So we'll see what happens, so.
All right, any further discussion on the motion to approve the rezoning from R4 to B1 and R5? All right, Nicole, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Bailey?
No.
Commissioner Cooper?
No.
Commissioner Lockmiller?
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oceanbine?
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart?
Yes,
Motion has carried.
thank you very much.
Will the commission see our discussion notes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, our next item is a familiar item of property, the Keebler annexation. So I believe we've annexed the property back in March or April,
It was May 4th.
May 4th. So now we have a question of a rezoning.
Yes, so in front of you all, I have a brand-new item that you have never seen. That's a joke. And I know that Amber has been doing most of the rezonings lately, but then when this item came up for its rezoning, I said, please, let me have it. I've had it for like well over a year now. Let me just take it all the way home. So I do have rezoning 1107. It is the Keebler Property, and they are requesting to go from R2B to RP3. So a little bit on the history. Again, this was annexed on May 4th with a zoning assignment of R2B, Low Density Residential District. And so that was for the single-family portion that was located kind of behind the creek. And then RP3 for the townhome portion. So at this point, this is all in the city. It's no longer a conversation of whether or not we want it. We have it. The townhomes are not a part of this request. So they were zoned RP3. That stands. They're able to do what they want with that zoning. So this rezoning request is for this back R2B portion, and it would match the RP3. So again, you can kind of see this hashed area is the area of the request, and that's approximately 118 acres. So we are at our June 13th meeting. So if this passes you all, it will go to City Commission for first reading, and then it will go to second reading and public hearing, and then third and final reading on August 3rd. So it will still have 3 more readings at City Commission, including another public hearing. So you guys have seen this concept plan a few times, and I'm sure that you have been sick of me saying, oh, it's not binding. Well, guess what? This time it is. So we are finally at the point where we can talk about that concept plan in a little bit deeper of level. So right now they are proposing 367 single-family lots, the minimum size being about 6,000 square feet, the maximum size being about 9,000 square feet. And you can see in the table over here that it has the breakdown of various lot sizes, so that it utilizes some of the topography and some curvature of the roads, so that the lots kind of work a little bit more naturally with the site. Subject to change, the exact location of the entrances. So under review for Public Works, there was some conversation about exactly where these specific entrances will be. And so that might change that would not require a concept plan amendment. But I'm not talking about a major, like getting rid of an egress or ingress. That would require a concept plan amendment. But say if this entrance right here slides down a little bit, that wouldn't come before you guys. We just need to work out exact site distances and kind of exactly where those locations are going to be. But the general plan would remain the same. Some requirements: water and sewer requires a phased development. That was a part of the plan of services. So for their initial build out, they can only do 200 units. That includes the townhomes and the single family homes. And again, that was a part of the annexation, and that was something that they're legally bound to. Other requirements: it will be subject to the open space ordinance, and then it will also be subject to a traffic study. In order to get the traffic study process started, they would need to submit the preliminary plat. And they actually have already submitted the preliminary plat. However, the staff will not review that plat until this rezoning has been processed and gone through and that correct zoning is applied. So again, if you'll think back, I think August 3rd was the date for that. So we wouldn't get into that preliminary plat phase until August 3rd. So the future land use map, again, you guys have probably seen this a few times. It does support residential on this back portion. A couple photos of the site. There was a neighborhood meeting. There were 2 in attendance with some questions regarding the traffic studies and exactly how stormwater and environmental reviews are processed. And then staff does recommend approval. I have a vicinity map, but I actually think that I'm going to leave this one on the concept plan. And like I said, I know that you guys have seen this a few times, but please let me know if I can answer any questions, and then we will have a public hearing tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Bourne. Questions for staff? No questions. Thank you. I'll go ahead and open the floor for public hearing. Anyone to speak to the question? I'll close the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, after a good length of time, we finally see this come for us for maybe the last time.
We have beat this horse to death.
Now, this horse has got just a little life left in it. Any questions or discussion amongst us? Floor is open for a motion if I only hear
I
one.
move that we approve the staff recommendation to rezone the property from R2B to RP3.
Second.
All right, I have a motion on the floor and a second to rezone the property, to recommend rezoning the property from, you've already forgotten what it's from?
R2B.
From R2B to RP3. Any other discussion or clarification? Nicole, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Lockmiller?
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oceanbine?
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart?
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you very much. All right, Ms., who's up for the last item?
Me.
Ms. Bourne's up for the last item. Go, please proceed.
All right. I did not expect that to go so quickly. But next in front of you, I have an amendment to our open space ordinance to add a multifamily component. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the history and theory that was discussed at some of our workshops. First being the policy steps and timeline. So on December 13th of last year, open space was brought to you all as one large ordinance that included single family and multifamily, and you all sent it to workshop. It was at that time that we decided to kind of workshop out multifamily, so to speak, and proceed with single family. And so, as you all know, we got single family open space passed on May the 4th as well. And so now, moving forward, we have decided to pick back up on open space for multifamily standards. So tonight is Planning Commission, and if you guys all recommend approval, it'll follow this path forward. So a little bit about open space, and I know that we've kind of had this discussion before with the single-family open space, but I just wanted to kind of remind you all kind of how we got here. And that's really just the amount of development pressure that our city is facing right now. We're starting to see trends towards smaller lots, higher density, as you guys just saw. And so we really wanted to provide, first of all, preservation opportunities, and then we also wanted to provide community opportunities. And so I'm not going to sit up here and convince you all the value of open space, because I think that we all as a community understand that open space does have inherent value in different areas. Again, whether it is that environmental factor, if it's just a space for people to gather, but it does add value to our community. Talking about transects. The transect model is kind of what the whole open space ordinance was based off of, and it's just a general planning ideology that essentially says that you have your urban core, and that's going to be your densest area. That's where you're going to see downtown, and then kind of you sprawl out as you go into your natural zone. And most of the development that occurs in Johnson City is all somewhere in the middle. And so when we first approached open space, the idea was that certain open space is more appropriate in certain areas. So if you have something that's in a rural zone, you might not even need open space. If you have something that's in the suburban zone, maybe something that's a little bit more conservation-based is a little bit more appropriate. Whereas if you have something that's in an urban center, conservation really isn't exactly what you're looking for, because most of everything is already paved. Maybe you're looking at more of a community gathering space. And so this was kind of the logic that we took throughout our open space ordinance. We came up with passive and active space. Passive open space being those ecologically valuable areas, an area that is really just that passive. It's still able to be used and enjoyed by the residents in whatever capacity that looks like, but it's not improved upon. And then we have active open space, and that's at the flip side. It's an area that's structured, it's an area that's been improved upon. In our single-family ordinance, we said that there was 15% open space, half of it being required to be active. So you have this intersection of conservation with built places and community gathering spaces. So continuing this talk about transects, when we talked about single-family open space, we were kind of on the other end of the transect, the lower density side of the transect, although, again, I know it's not inherently low density. Talking about multifamily and open space and the concept of multifamily, we get into a conversation about also the missing middle housing. And so when you get into the conversation of multifamily, I think it's important to bring that up. As we just had a conversation with 2 rezonings ago, we need housing in Johnson City. And I think that it's no surprise that there is a lack of affordable housing that specifically is aimed to be solved at by providing more missing middle housing. So to give more people the opportunity to get in housing and to make it more affordable. And so I did want to acknowledge that as we talk about multifamily open space, this is kind of the section of the transect that we're on. And so in our workshops, what we had, conversation on and discussion about was this balance of quality development and places that Johnson City is proud of and places for communities to gather, and affordability. As you increase regulations, inherently you're going to decrease affordability. And so in our workshops, we talked about where on the scale do we want to fall? How far can we tip while still managing to keep affordability in mind, but still wanting to create, again, that sense of place. So that's how we got to this proposed text amendment. The applicability is the same as single family. It is greater than 25 units and greater than 10 acres, and then where new streets are required for subdivision. I want that last one to stick with you guys, because if you are not subdividing the property, then new streets wouldn't be a trigger. However, greater than 25 units or greater than 10 acres would be. So for our standards, we have single family, which is currently adopted, 15% half activated. We have multifamily, which in our workshops, we determined that we wanted to proceed forward with a 5% requirement, all activated. I also added a mixed residential component. The previous rezoning associated with the Keebler annexation is a good example of that. What if they want to do kind of one larger project, but it uses both single family and multifamily? And so we determined that the majority would be what it follows, and if it happens to be equal, so if you have 50 single-family units and 50 multifamily units, it'll follow the more strict single-family standards. Other than that, if you have 51 single-family and 50 multifamily, it would follow single-family. 51 multifamily, 50 single-family, it would follow multifamily standards. So just a simple majority rule there. We also added in the following exceptions. So that's going to be land zone B2 or B3, so think downtown. If you decide to put an apartment complex in downtown, you're walking distance to everything. You know, you probably don't need those gathering spaces because you're probably living downtown, so you can walk to all of the gathering spaces that we already have. And then also multifamily projects that utilize adaptive reuse of existing buildings. So think the hub right outside of the mall in Johnson City. So we want to encourage those types of redevelopment. So if a developer is willing to purchase an existing building that's unused and renovate that and use that for housing, we don't want to add additional regulations because we do want to encourage that style of reuse and redevelopment. Now, what about the RP districts? So in the single-family ordinance, the single-family just trumped the RP. So if it was a single-family RP district, it had to follow the open space standards, not the RP standards, although they were about the same. The single-family was just a bit more strict. From a structured standpoint, they're both 15%. Now, for multifamily, if you had an RP zoning district, that 15% requirement still stands. 5% active, which is what you all have proposed, can count towards it. So essentially, you kind of have that 5% active is still there for your multifamily, but if you're developing in an RP district, that 5% would count again towards that 15%. So you would have to find an extra 10%, just like you would now if you developed multifamily in the RP districts. So I'm going to go through a couple existing multifamily developments. I showed you guys these in our workshop, so this shouldn't be a surprise, but just to kind of see what that looks like. The reserve is a little less than 14.5 acres. It has about a half an acre of open space, which equates to about 3.47%. The Haven at Knob Creek is sitting at about 2.04%. U-Edge has about 3.22%. Monarch has about 5%. And Mockingbird has about 2.83%. So in summary, what this text amendment does to our open space ordinance is it adds multifamily open space requirements as 5%, all activated. It adds the mixed residential portion, determined by majority. So again, if you come in and you want to do single family and multifamily, it gives guidance on how to determine that. And then it also has the RP requirement of 15% still standing, but just adding that 5% active for multifamily, essentially. And then it also excludes downtown and reuse projects. And staff recommends approval, and I am happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Questions for staff? Looks like we have none. Ms. Warren, thank you. You may have a seat. I'm going to open the floor for public comment. Is anyone here to speak to the question? Please give your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Danny Sales, Delmer Salts Road in Gray, Tennessee. And you didn't expect you were going to get comments from me tonight. But anyway, I'm a little bit confused on this one. As I've talked with Will and Peyton as well, there's still a lot of work I think needs to be done on the open space. Confusion here when you go to multifamily as you reduce it to 5%, well, you're really looking at more of a dense number of units, more people, but you're reducing the amount of open space that those folks would use, putting more pressure on the natural resource as well as the resource of the ability of those folks to actually be active in open space. You know, and so it doesn't seem to make sense. One of the questions I have, as you continue to develop in other areas, I understand the downtown and close to downtown and those kind of things make a lot of sense that you don't have requirements. But as you're looking at other developments, as we're moving out in Gray and Boone's Creek and those kind of things, what do you want that to look like in the future? It comes down to planning, and planning to understand what it is that you want those places to look like, and what natural resources as well as the active resources for exercise and stuff that you want to do. I'm not saying this is necessarily wrong, but I think that the whole concept of your open space, where I think you want to go, still needs a tremendous amount of work. Now, I honestly don't understand, and Peyton can explain it to me at some point, but I don't understand the difference between an RP is still 15% and the multifamily is 5%. I don't really understand that relationship. But I just don't see, when you have more people, more units, people using, I would like to see also more detail behind this, the details behind how this is actually implemented makes a lot of sense to the people that are actually trying to use it, whether you're a developer or whether you're a person that's living somewhere that you're looking for those kind of things, and you don't really see it. I'd like to be able to see if the staff is able to see, okay, can we go with, if there is a park close, we can go with less open space in it. Is there other amenities, if there are special natural resource areas within that development, then it's going to increase that, because you do have some natural resource that you want to protect. So I just think there's a lot of thought, and I think this is going to take a lot of time for you to really go through it, but I'm worried that you wind up going through all of these and closing the door on your open space rule and never looking at it again until 10 or 15 years down the road, and all of a sudden you're looking at subdivisions that really should have looked a little bit different because you hadn't put the planning necessary into making those really livable communities. The affordability for sure is an issue, but desirability is also an issue as to how you're going to deal with these. So I just feel that there's a lot more to do yet on this.
Thank you, Mr. Sells.
Stan Hathorn, 120 West Holston Avenue. I'm sensitive to the discussions about housing affordability and the need for housing. We definitely have that in this community, as most across the country do. And I somewhat echo some of the thoughts that the previous gentleman shared. I mean, I think that we do have an obligation to think about how do we want our city to look in the future. And I know that there was a lot of the discussion that this group had in the workshop, and I applaud that for sure, so that we can continue to maintain the beauty of our city. I think that this amendment does help do that. I don't know that it's perfect to some of his comments as well. I would certainly encourage accepting this amendment and then considering, what do we do to continue to make this better, and how does that look in the future as we move forward? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Someone else? Seeing no one else, I'll close the floor for public comment and turn the question back to us.
I think one of to address both gentlemen, I think we made it very clear at our workshop that this was just our first step, that we are not closing the door, that we struggle with this, and we have a little trouble coming up with a clear consensus about what the right numbers are. So this is just our first step, and I think we fully expect that we're going to have to continue to watch this and probably make future adjustments.
I think to echo Commissioner Cooper's statements is, in the workshop, we really echoed cost to the renter versus making sure that we hold what's so dear to Johnson City, and that's the beauty around us. And we really felt like the 5% was the first step in the right direction to make sure that we watched what happened to the renter with the cost and this change, as well as making sure we don't stifle growth, but at the same time making sure that we, enhance our neighborhoods and our communities. So I think your comments were good ones, and we appreciate that.
Only comment I have is that there's quite a difference between multifamily and single family in terms of the people using that. Multifamily oftentimes don't have as many kids, whereas single-family, they do. It's a different lifestyle. And I think we need to be cognizant of that multifamily like to have concentrated activity areas, where single-family don't have the opportunity to have open space. And I think that's what we've tried to do with open space on single families, give more active areas. So I think our ratios are good, and they're comparable to other towns. So that's about all I got to say.
Well, I'd also echo the fact that when we did the survey of multifamilies that have been developed in the reasonable past, this pushes all of them, this would push all of them to develop more open space than what they currently have. So this would be a step toward more open space than what we have traditionally seen, but we were concerned about pushing it too far and really impacting the affordability of living space for community, for usually people that are starting their careers, starting their families, starting their lives in our community, and move toward more affordability than more costly living. Further questions or comments?
I would like to entertain a motion, sir, to go ahead and approve the text amendment for multifamily open space.
Approve recommending the text amendment be adopted.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
To be adopted.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to recommend adoption of the text amendment changes as have been presented, and I've got a second. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Lockmiller?
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oshenbein?
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart?
Yes.
Motion has carried.
I want to speak to the public, and I want to speak to you, Danny. You raised some really good questions, and we take these questions to heart, and we are diligently trying to figure out the best path forward, and we're probably going to stay on the conservative side and reserve the right to go back and look at it in 2 years and 5 years to see what change we're impacting in the community, and if we feel like it's the right change and if it's enough change. If we don't feel like it's enough change, we will come back and readdress the question. We won't let it lay there indefinitely if it's not comfortable and not appropriate for our community. But we don't want to move too fast, too aggressively, and make change that will stifle development in our community.
Welcome to East Tennessee.
Yes.
Any other questions or business to come before us?
God's good.
Hearing none, I'll call the meeting to adjourn.
Not bad at all.